well, resign from this particular committee, and it's an interesting committee, and we are still trying to have a person to fulfill that position. As I've read over the minutes, which I've been doing because I've been filing my notebooks and stuff. It was, of course, O'Neill that started this beautiful beginning of the habitat, and backyard habitat is what it was called. And through the years, we have found that the goals of these habitats are what we're doing to improve the environment with all the different committees in our care in the land care committee. So that this particular position was in the Parks and Recreation. So it was one where he was wanting everyone in the valley to be able to acknowledge that there can be a way to protect wildlife, to protect in particular our natural resources, but in particular getting rid of invasive plants and starting a good gardening structure within backyards or anywhere within Montreat. And as I've read over the last 3, 4, 5 years, there's the National Wildlife Federation has every other month a seminar. And so what this representative has done through the years is listen to the seminar, report back to the Landcare. So it is not simply, but that is the job description of this particular person. And we've gotten a lot of good ideas from it, but it is one where we can always have that resource, and I will want to fulfill that slot because it's a major area and a beginning of what we had here in Montreat for land care, and dating back all the way to Parks and Recreation. The other, let's see, the native plant sale. For some reason, I placed that in there. Jean, it says final report. Well, this is one that we're going to be having a meeting with the co-chairs of the next spring's April meeting. So that number in Roman numeral 9K, you can just strike that because, as you know, the native plant sale is like a subcommittee, and most of its action and information is given closer to February, March in the coming year. So. Jim brought up something about the structure of our committee, our agenda. There's no new business or old business. So at some point, we may want to take a look at how in Robert's rules, how to structure this particular, this has been a template for many years. Martha and Bill Seaman started this structure of the activity projects reports and then the entity reports. But there can be a new business anytime that you wish to add in the business. And I think the one that you're wanting to take, I might go ahead and let it be within the time frame of looking at the Montreat Trail Club and the Wilderness Montreat Wilderness Committee of the MRA. So if you can, I think that's appropriate, but that you got. Thank you. All right. Now, I wanted just to share something with you that maybe gives a good description of how we are within the town and the structure within our budget. As you know, we're having a situation since July 1. We have not had a report from our finance officer because there's not a finance officer yet hired. I've had talked to some CPAs and others. I'm hoping I can talk with Ben Blackburn about even just getting the account balance. At least that. I don't have to have that full page, 2-page report that goes all the way back. We have 4 accounts, and the one I'm most curious about and continue to watch over is the one of the Nancy Hope Fund, which is where continuing our donations are going in because of the accessible trail and the fundraising done by the Flat Creek Crossing. But I just wanted to share something that I wrote in April of 2021 that gives a good explanation about our Montreat Land Care budget and when we request monies. In this particular time, with the help of and guidance of looking back with Alice Lance and Martha Campbell, we were going from a budget that was given to us during the beginning of COVID of $1,000 instead of 2,000. So I decided to go ahead in 2021 for the new budget. This was in April of 2021 to go to the full amount of 2,500, which is now what we've had for the past 2 years. So Alex Carmichael, who was then the manager, had asked me, I wrote to him and said, the Montreat Landcare budget request is for the full amount. He was curious as to why I was wanting that much money. In answer to your question about other Montreat entities contributing to the cost of Landcare activities and programs, the town of Montreat has always had a line item in its budget to support the basic financial needs of its Landcare programs. The goal of these programs are designed to help preserve and improve the environment of the Cove and to enhance the experience of living or visiting in Montreat. The other primary entity members are very generous in their support of Montreat through providing staff, programs, volunteers to maintain the nature center, hiking trails, recreational facilities, Robert Lake Park, stock and fish for Lake Susan, picnic areas such as Monkey Bottoms, to name a few. Stewardship of Flat Creek has been spearheaded by Montreat Landcare with the help of Montreat College and Montreat Presbyterian Church. The conference center provides meeting rooms and equipment to hold the native plant sale and the annual luncheon when there is a luncheon. And they have also shared in the printing costs of Montreat trail maps and recreational brochures for all who come to our town. There are many more examples. Historically, the town has funded Landcare work since well before 2000, the year 2000, through its Parks and Recreation Committee. And in 2007, the activities of Parks and Recreation were assumed by the town's newly created Montreat Landcare Committee, and its bylaws state it is an advisory committee to the Town Board of Commissioners. And from 2008 through 2020 fiscal years, the MLC budget was funded between 2,000 and 5,000. The allocation for 2021 fiscal year was reduced from 2,000 to 1,000 as a result of COVID cutbacks, 19 cutbacks. Individuals, foundations, and churches contribute monies to the Nancy Hope Fund, and those funds will be used primarily for startup projects and their longer-term maintenance. There are 2 new startup projects that are going to be discussed, and that's what we've been doing with Accessible Trail and others. Please let me know if you have any other questions. And the care of our environment is at the heart of the town's priorities. Advocating for this minor financial responsibility of the town to support Landcare is imperative. So I always want everybody to know that Landcare needs the help of this beautiful town and from this town board. And I have Jason now representing Conference Center, but I cannot tell you, we have said in the past how much we have appreciated all the entities contributing from the college to the Conference Center. And just to make a note that there is now only one trail that is the town's ownership, and that is the new Flat Creek crossing. It is on totally town property in that first phase. So we are very happy that that's the one that goes to the gate, and we're getting great support from all people in that situation. I just really wanted y'all to know how the budget looks and why that's important for Landcare. Okay. Would you like my letter? Yes. I just dug it out when I was going through all my things. An interesting note that I'd like to have about public comments. We have been, that's something that we've not have always had in our agendas over the years, but the fact that we are a town committee and we're open and transparent, we do have those who write letters. I've read many from like over a year or 2 years ago of any concerns that people have related to like the Montreat stewards and anything in the environment. So if there's a public comment sometimes we are board members, but we are also citizens. And if there's anyone that would like to make a comment today. All right. Oh, Mary.
I'm Mary Standard, and I just came today to thank you for all of your hard work and how important it is. And we are unique in having this particular committee, and so many people serving, and I want to reach back to O'Neill, Kate, and to Ron Nally, and to Letta Jean for putting this into place in a time when it was very new. And to thank all of the chairs in particular, because as I think you all know, a committee is only as strong as its chairs and its members. So thank you, Grace, for your service. And I do have a question regarding the budget.
Yep.
With respect to, do any of the accounts roll over at the end of the fiscal year, or the money swept into the general fund of the town? Just to keep that on the record, I'd appreciate some explanation. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question. The Nancy Hope Fund was started because of her in her obituary. That's the one that rolls over, and in fact, it's the one that I've been using for those people who have contributed. Now, there was a pause in the books when Darlene was here. She opened up a third account, which also was called contributions. And that one was to be used by the end of the fiscal year. And I have questioned, and that's the one I'm greatly, needing.
So if we as individuals wish to contribute personally to the Landcare Committee, we should make sure it's designated to go to the Nancy Hope
Yes.
Fund. That would be
Yeah,
helpful.
the town of Montreat the check is made out to that, and then the
It's
memo
done.
line reads, actually, if it's Nancy Hope Fund, that would be where, as we've had in the past, and Martha maybe remembers, we've even had $1,000 contribution out of the blue from a Brandon,
Florida.
well, it was maybe your church, but there was a foundation that wrote, we like the philosophy. They could have been up here for a conference or learned about Landcare. And so they contributed $1,000. That went in to the Nancy Hope, and that was being built up.
Yeah, I think once we made a contribution and weren't aware that we needed to make that designation, and not sure how it happened, but just to keep that in the forefront. Thank you.
Actually, interestingly, there was 4 or 5 people that got into that new account that was contributing, and that was going to one that needed to be used up. It did go toward the survey and the funds, the standards made, and others. There were about 4 or 5. And then with Jim and Lee, with fundraising, some of that cash that came in from our sales of the nature cards and prints, that started going in there. So I'm trying to steer it back into the Nancy Hope because
Thank you. It's important that we keep that in mind.
Yeah. The memo line would read Nancy Hope Fund, and if you particularly have it for the Flat Creek Crossing, you would put the accessible trail or Flat Creek Crossing. But that's something I'm really excited if we can have our financial director soon come, that we'll have a good sit down meeting, because we will be having a treasurer for the new year in the slate, because this is the 2023 time where our secretary / treasurer will be a new position, which will be good and help us out. I know I'm talking a lot, but thank you. Okay. The stormwater runoff health of Flat Creek. I have something I wanted to read when we get down to the activity and project report, that Bill Seaman and I continue to have wonderful chats and conversations. And I think Martha has mentioned this many times, even through the years that she was chair and then Bill was the chair of Landcare. He is one of the most wonderful resources. His of course, love of the land and his knowledge and his background. It's like a Josh and a Jason put into our environment, that we have people that know about our land and about Montreat. And Bill is so detailed and so wonderful. And he has been represented as well on the Montreat Tomorrow. And I will report he could not come today, but he did send me some items to mention. Our importance of becoming a bear-wise community, and also the protection of all wildlife. And we're going to be talking about that in a few minutes with our big news about Bearwise. And thanks to our commissioner, actually both Tom Widmer and Mason Blake, in working on ordinances for the town with garbage, as well as the hunting dogs, bear hunting dogs. Okay. Now, the bylaws, our vision, mission, and our structure. I have some copies. I'm particularly pleased to note that if you are in any way interested in knowing how the structure of this Landcare committee is designed, we have to have our bylaws, and it was revised by 4 people on a committee back in October and over the summer of 2021. And this is the copies that I'm going to have for anyone, and particularly those who are coming new onto the board. And we will be looking at the structure of how we work and why we have representations from the 8 entities. It was always designed that we are an umbrella group and that the members are from the entities of meaning the college, the conference center, the town, and then those who are on the wilderness committee and then the trail club. In particular, that's important because all those lands are excuse me, all the trails and lands of parks and recreation are on private property. So if you look at the structure, we are balanced so that not one entity is, I'm losing my voice. It's shared by all. So I would suggest in February that we have a good discussion of orientation, and then having even invitations to the public to come for a good discussion of where do we go from here. So if you want a copy, and many of you have them because I gave them to you at the beginning of our year when I got my notebooks out. And I have plenty right here for you to look at. The one in particular I'd like to read is attendance and and participation at monthly meeting is open to all who wish to attend. Active involvement of other groups and organizations with common interests is encouraged. So this is always with live streaming. Thank you, Josh. So here are copies, and you can put it by your bedside table for some night reading. All right. Looking back and going forward, I have, as I have told you, I do have some interesting readings of our past minutes. And I've highlighted some things that maybe we can look at into our structure within the Landcare. Always had an eye on having resident scientists. And this is something that I feel can go forward because we've talked about keeping the eye on the stream. We have pilot projects to maybe coordinate cleanup streams with college students. So we've always had this concern about Black Creek. And there was a suggestion that we had in one case, and I think this is something to talk about at some point next February, is a new subcommittee of the Montreat Landcare that provides outreach and education for water care. And that was something that Dottie Schumann had suggested. We always seem to have this urge and this desire to keep our waters clean. And Bill Seaman, I'm going to speak to that with the comment that he made. We've also been talking about action plans for the grounds crew from the town and the college to develop a plan together on how best to eradicate invasive plants. So those 2 big things still continue to stand out as to concerns that I think we have and we've discussed through the years. We know now, though, that there is I think this is true, that Daniel is a town employee, is trained in dispensing the herbicides to combat invasive plants more permanently. So I think we should need to have conversations with the town about how we can do that, because we are desiring the cooperation by all the entities. So anyway, that's where I'm looking back And going forward, I always want any of our projects that as we go forward in the new year is what I mentioned 2 years ago in a January meeting. Act now, don't wait. Act now. We have to be on top of it. We cannot say, oh, let's work on that another time. But I mean, obviously, the cooperation of all of our committee heads and with the board members and with the town commissioners, we need to act. Always thinking about what we can do to preserve this beautiful spot we love. So that's where I look forward to more times with you. I'm not going away, but this is the time for looking ahead and thinking about what the new year is bringing us. So, any comments, or we can make a comment or suggestions of any other forward-looking things that we're going to do? Well, what I've loved over the last year or two is that we're getting new faces and new people, and we're needing to do that. And I like active conversation. I think we've had good conversations related to looking back and seeing what we've learned and what we've done and we could do better. But when I look forward, we don't want to be in all these little silos. We want to be under the umbrella and be together. And that's really what I think we need to keep our eyes on is the cooperation of all entities. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. Now, I wish to have Maggie Ray come to the mic and have a slate of nominating committee of officers. She has worked with, has countless conversations with people from the past who have worked with her, Dottie Schumann, other officers, Bill Seaman, and reaching out to, of course, myself.
Well, the way I count the days, today is the 10th day of the 12 days of Christmas. And so our nominating committee is bringing gifts of a slate of officers for the Landcare 2023 through 2025. Our committee consisted of Grace Nichols, Dottie Schumann, and myself, and many others whom we talked with over the last month. We began by asking for and following up on suggestions, and we concluded our work by presenting this outstanding slate of officers for you today. Our nominee for chair is Arrington Cox, who brings with her a wealth of experience from projects in Columbia and who is in public leadership there. And she brings a fresh eye and perspective for us, having just lived here 3 years, and we are welcoming that new perspective. For vice chair, we have Dave Neal, who is has become a participant through his work with the Wilderness Committee with MRA, and has led to his involvement with us and the tree board. And finally, Jean Norris is going to be has been nominated to be our secretary treasurer. And she has taken on a less onerous job than she's had in the past as chair of the plant. And we hope people enjoy this less onerous assignment. I would also like to add that Grace is going to become not the ex officio member, but I like to call her the chair emerita.
Oh,
So that is our proposal to the group today.
thank you. And this is a report from the nominating committee. So is there a motion on the floor to accept the 3 officers?
I motion to accept the 3 officers.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. David, did you vote? And Arrington, I have to tell you that Arrington, she's been coming for many summers, but has been a permanent resident because lives now from Virginia in an adorable house with a sweet doggy inside of her house and a big there outside on the lawn that she moves around. And she has always been in getting down into the dirt and doing things within her own area. She landscapes beautifully. She has an eye on what's the right thing to put in the right place. And I first found out about Arrington's love of Montreat is getting ivy off of the beautiful, wonderful walls that we see in the old areas. Now, many of those walls, the stone walls are on private property, but she can get permission. But she, from starting up at the end of North Carolina, she was able to beautify that street by revealing that there are really good stone walls here, and they're going to crumble if we don't. And I think about that when I look at Arkansas and other places. So, she has desires for looking at trails and getting into poison ivy. She would be your partner in crime, George Sawyer, because she loves to get down and get the stuff out. And she has asked that would be still her priority. Now, we do have her come in as a Bearwise representative, and we will see how that goes once we're moving along. But I appreciate your desire to be a part of us, and I know that your refreshing personality will enhance this committee. Thank you, Eric. And David, we'll always have you. Yeah, and it's always going to be 9 o'clock. And of course, having Jean. And Jean and I are going to be closely working as I'm moving into Patty Pyle's supporting of the Black Creek Crossing. We're as treasurer. She's going to be a good, once we have our financial director, I think we will also see how we can move into perhaps another way to fund the accessible trail. Jean has the eye of, I mean, she knows how to format. She knows how to, I mean, working with her at the native plant sale and knowing what she was doing. She says, and now I have a different philosophy sometime about minutes, but we are all bringing our own skills, and it's you that's going to be appreciated because it's a wealth of information. We need to have all of our recordings filed with the town clerk. And I am now having these boxes, and I'm going to finally get over to the Heritage Center before I lose them. And we can make sure that we are going down in history. So I cannot tell you how much the secretary's position, and I would like to thank you, Meredith. Yeah, we have a lot of fun. All right. Thank you for that. Now, Flat Creek, and I'm talking too much, but I wanted to share what Bill going into our activities and project reports. He also, he's written me several times, but this particular as to committee projects, number one, you may share, this is Bill Seaman, you may share with the group that I remain available to work in re-energizing the stream team and shall take on organizing a watershed project page for the website. Two, the draft for your information, the draft comprehensive town plan has numerous references to watershed health. And that's the Montreat tomorrow. 3, that I shall be drafting a fact sheet on autumn season falling leaves, the responsible roundup. So that will be, I think, in conjunction, because I know that Nancy Midget and the town and leaf collecting and bagging, but he's going to have that ready for the fall. And he made a suggestion. He said, it occurs to me that perhaps public comments could be limited in time and taken as information rather than opening any kind of discussion and debate. So when we do have our public comments, it's similar to what the town council and others have. So that was one of his suggestions. But Bill is traveling this spring. He's going to be out of the country, but he still wants to have, and I'm still keeping the Flat Creek watershed, Bill Seaman, listed as our report for one of our activities and projects. So this Roman numeral 9 are all what we call the MLC teams. And that is the structure of those coming and goings of these various committees. So if you see that we are down to Firewise, Meredith is representing that committee, there's nothing to report. I'm finding that I have a gathering of 2 or 3 people who wish to have a look at the rain garden and the pocket park here at the town hall. There are many citizens that are concerned about what's still there and what's not there, how much the weeding is necessary even around, and that's another discussion. We are well into the mayor's Monarch Pledge. Many thanks again to Angie Murphy for submitting that. As I announced last week, we are moving forward. And it's in particular that that's the sunniest spot for Milkweed or our monarch. So that pocket park is really in conjunction with keeping that going. I've already talked about the National Wildlife Federation. Patty Powell continues to check in, and Jason, you're doing so well with helping us keeping the brochures in that. Fundraising. Big announcement. We now have 40 different. We have 10 of, and the brand new one of Jim Williamson's paintings for fundraising. We've already, we keep getting calls, and people even over the Christmas holidays wanted to get prints for gifts. And that nature prints and cards, Leith and Jim and Peggy and I are gonna all figure out a way. I know that Tracy said, Bailey said that there is a Rhodes Scholar or some conference in January or early February on watercolors, on painting. And so we're going to have artists coming. So she said we can sit ourselves down in the assembly and lobby and have some of these prints. So that might be, until we can get outside at the post office, we're limited with the mats, but we can always advertise through our Montreat Minute or others. Yeah. Oh, were there the mats now? They're available now. Just have to get the sleeves. They're $65 a piece. And we have the newest one is the beautiful First Light that we talked about, and it's the one of Assembly Inn. And Jim graciously got that into our supplies. And there's the gate, the West Bank. And then of course, the most popular one is the Walt Jones Wildlife Sanctuary. That's a beauty. Oh, they're available today. Oh, in my car. Well, actually they're in Jim's, but interestingly, we did have one person who had 3 and they said, please, I want the 4th one. So we're taking a sleeve off of another Montreat gate to get that up to. Yeah, I have to get the sleeves, but if you want without the sleeves, this is just for the protection. I wish we had brought those. It was raining when I came, so I think I'll go for the well, 4 of them could go in your car. And the check made out to Jim Williams. No. Jim is not, this is something Peggy from the very beginning is this is the gift that we have of so many people here in Montreat, but Jim has just opened up the wonderful, fundraising for the Flat Creek Crossing. And that's what Peggy and sweet wife said at the very beginning when we sold them at the Montreat Cottagers meeting 2 summers ago. Tell the people what this is for. This is not Jim making money. So, and he does, I don't know what the 5th one going to be, but he hasn't stopped painting, I don't think. Okay. Any comments about your paintings or what you'd like to share in your experience with the team?
Well, I just continue to look for good subject matter, and I never know it until I stumble upon it. A lot of it depends on the weather and atmospheric conditions. I seem to have gotten interested in misty kinds of scenes recently. And there is a new one, of the left bank.
Oh,
You haven't seen it.
okay, but there's a new, oh.
Yep.
Well, I know that Hal commented last month that he knew exactly where you were when you saw the first light of the assembly. Right, Hal?
Right.
All right. Okay, so, Arrington, I'll talk to you about the prints after this. Okay, excellent. Okay. The accessible trail. Patty Powell has, really talking too much, but I'm reporting for, you know, Patty has every Wednesday, she's cooking at the First Methodist Church. Sometimes she can live stream, but she is the chef for the open table and works her tail off. And wishes there could be another day other than Wednesday, but that's how it's always been. The All Persons Trail Flat Creek Crossing, 2022 year in review. 2022 is the year the Landcare Committee's All Persons Trail project began to take shape, in a way like taking on a new recipe in the kitchen. Several steps had to be followed before we could start cooking and hopefully serving up a delicious meal of hard surfaced, safe, accessible trail just inside Monterey Gate. The early months of the year were prep work, committee backing, the site selection, naming, and the early stages of seeking town support for the use of the land. We read some other recipes and watched some YouTube videos, visited G5 and other experts, researched U.S. Forest Service, Mass Audubon, and visited other trails. Then we got to shop for ingredients. We found a designer, April Carter, form a steering committee, Will Jones, Chairs Graves, Mary Olive Smith, Danny Weiss, Christina Totaro, George Sawyer, Patty, Grace, and Kevin Bates. We get a survey, we build the town council support, we work with Barry Kreisman, Ben Blackburn, and Angie Murphy. And then in the middle months of the year, we could actually start cooking, getting final approval and special use permit from the town, posting our recipe and flyers, walking in the July 4th parade, selling art cards at the cottagers meeting to fundraise, hosting other trail cooks at several work days. Poison ivy was unfortunately on the menu. Final months of the year found the recipe getting lots of attention, maybe not on TikTok, but in our inner circle of volunteers and committee folks. Meetings held to discuss design features, more research into funding channels, decisions on forming our own 501c3, and that's in the works. Cooperation with the town on debris removal, consultation with an accountant, continued talks with MRA on trail ideas. It was a very good year, and many thanks to everyone who has embraced the trail concept and wants to cook with us. The recipe is a winner. With everyone's help, we will be moving ahead with publicity, fundraising, grant requests, work days, plantings, surfacing decisions, and final design tweaks. The goal is nutrition of a very special sort. Access to the creek for refreshment of body and soul. So help us get there. That was one of the most creative. She said, I was really on a roll. I think that was after the University of Georgia football game. Her daughter went to Georgia. Okay, now, as we move down, we have any Hemlock, David, or now to our, no Hemlock.
Sure.
Okay,
Actually, do.
Oh.
After talking with Josh after the last meeting, he was here. He let me know that they would be having another spring hemlock restoration.
Hi.
Oh, come on. Can't hear me? Hello. There, put it. Anyway, there will be another hemlock restoration initiative through the college this spring scheduled. And I talked with Abby Lee, who is the natural sciences lab coordinator. She'll be the one putting this together, and we'll be surveying more around the college, they said this year, for hemlock, see how they're holding up, and also for the presence of the beetles. We want to make sure that they're still present and doing their job to take care of the varmints that like to eat on the hemlocks. That's not a good thing, but that's what they do. Anyway, that's scheduled for March 25th at 9 a.m. And I'll be a part of that. Can entertain ideas about how to get more people from Montreat involved. And certainly will invite that. And I have a copy of this for Madam Secretary, said it can be added. That's a note from Abby to me, a response.
It's great.
That's
Thank
it. That's enough of my talk.
Any questions for David? I know that the conference center had reached out, remember that with the treatments of their hemorrhoids.
I don't believe that's on the school's agenda though, for this spring.
Yeah,
At
good.
this point,
Yeah,
I can make that point with that.
all right. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Now, to one of our new additions to the Landcare team is Arrington reporting about Bear Wise.
You sort of pushing for time here, so I will try to be quick. Mike. There? Huh. So in the process of this being done, revisions are being made to the solid waste ordinance, which will make a definition and description of reasonably priced and affordable bear-proof containers. And the ticket here is reasonably priced and affordable, or bear-resistant containers, and a list of basic requirements for containers to be approved by the town. A requirement will be added to the ordinance that solid waste containers and enclosures must be properly repaired if damaged. Setting bags on top of containers will be prohibited. Educationally, the ordinance which prevents the feeding of bears will be revised. A provision will be added to prohibit residents from putting out any food for animals other than birdseed and pet food for household pets. A Bearwise website will be established on the town's website and will include information on town resources, ordinances, Bearwise information, a link to the Bearwise website, and provide instruction to subscribe to Bearwise messaging. A link will be included in the town's Bearwise webpage and the town's social media messaging like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. A permanent Bearwise presence will be established in the town's e-newsletter with the link to the town's Bearwise webpage. Bearwise will have a presence at community educational events, an NCWC presentation, that's the North Carolina Wildlife Commission, will have a presentation at each Montreat native plant sale. Bearwise entry in the July 4th parade. If anybody wants to dress up like a bear, it would be great. Let me know. Educational table and materials at each MRA's annual meetings and the full town educational forum prior to the beginning of each hunting season. Neighborhood systems for reporting bear activity are currently being established throughout our community, with captains being named for each general location. This is a requirement that the Wildlife Commission is making us do to be certified. Captains will gather information from residents in their areas through an email system. There are 3 reporting levels indicated by the North Carolina Wildlife Commission: green incidents, yellow incidents, and red incidents. These levels of behavior will indicate bear habitation and food levels. Our deadline for completing this in order to be certified as a Bearwise community is March the 1st. The benefits for Montreat in achieving this designation are: it just demonstrates that we are a certified wildlife preserve looking after the safety of our bears, our pets, and ourselves. Demonstrates report for town ordinances as pertains to trash and keep bears from wandering through yards to get to the trash. Provides educational benefits about bears, habitats, and activities. As a designated bear-wise community, we will be known as supporters of the North Carolina Wildlife Commission, whose primary purpose is tracking the bear population in western North Carolina. Respectfully submitted.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Great. And Ashley will be coming back, and it's not one where we've done templates of going onto the computer to be recertified like in the Monarch sheet, meaning Ashley Hans does the designation, and once we have those requirements. It's amazing the love and the care for bears and the necessity for all of us. And we're hoping that we can reach out to Black Mountain. I know that that's where we have had a lot of activity, and it's a different situation in Black Mountain or in a real town because of commercial. And then of course, we've talked about the college last week or last month. And Dottie said that they would like to investigate. So they're going to be in touch with Ashley. It's the college's decision about that. At any rate, thank you, Arrington. And you still have your bear in your yard, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Fred's in a
Fred.
different place, but it's still Fred. So
It's still Fred. And the dogs think it's real, that walk by your house. I wonder what the bears think. Okay, it's the Earth Ministry, let's see, the native plant. I know that don't have our representation from the town today, but we do have Brad Hester from the tree board for our entity report. Brad, did you have any comments or anything you need to state? You are going to have a meeting in next week of the following, tree board meeting.
Yeah, the tree board meeting is generally towards the end of the month. And we're going to be welcoming Arrington as a new participant there. So
Thank you.
be in touch. I have one kind of passing thought. It goes back to hemlocks and invasives and things like that. There's this thing that kind of lurks around the community, which is invasive trees, invasive vines, all these things that we don't want to have around. I was delighted to hear you talking about vines and abatement. You know, the tree board has had for the last couple of years an off again, on again project that we designate the Ivy League, which is people coming out on a designated day to work on abating the ivy that grows everywhere. I have this idea that there's got to be some way of pulling all this together in a way that that works more systematically. You know, it's hemlocks, it's the ash borer thing, the emerald ash borer is a new one on the scene. There's knotweed, there's ivy. You can go on down the list about invasive things. And I think time is there where we should probably, between the Landcare and the tree board, think about how we kind of like organize that whole thing together in a way that that's workable and gives things the attention they need to do.
Excellent. Yeah.
So
Good point.
just a comment.
Yeah, excellent. Yes. And of course, that would go along with the caring of our creeks and the adoption of parts of the creek, because that Japanese knotwood is just, if you walk over toward this area, it's just like it just, you cut it down and it comes up overnight. And it's damaging and eroding the banks of our plant tree. Okay, the college update, they're on vacation and Dottie's having fun in New York City with her sweet son. And Jason is here for the MRA, and we are welcoming you. And thank you for being here.
I think probably the biggest thing going on with MRA right now is that summer staff applications are open until the 15th of January. Well, they're open beyond that, but that's the first kind of deadline, and we'll take everyone who's applied by that point and start looking at them. So if you've got friends, relations, acquaintances who might want to spend the summer up in Montreat working, or maybe even working with me, let me know.
Yep.
Or don't let me know, let them know, let them,
Yeah.
apply, and then we'll see who's who. I think that's the big one from that. And then the other thing is college conference. Some of you may have noticed that we've got about 600 college students
yes.
here for the 2023 Collegiate Conference. So, so
Cool.
far, so good.
Yeah, they're taking up the parking places over at Anderson. I can see that. I would like to
Would you have
say,
a question?
There. Jason, when are you going to be open for business down there at the Nature Center?
Usually around Memorial Day. Now I'm down there some
Oh,
other
you are?
times. I'm there some other times working on various things, but as far as being open for the public in a museum sort of sense, and if you'll permit me to jump around a little, Grace, and talk wilderness and other things. Well, actually, I guess this is still under MRA. One of the things that Hal may know is that the Nature Center has a soft floor that certain parts of it kind of buckle when you walk on it. And I had a
My house
consultation,
is like that.
with Terminex, and we have powder post beetles. And so they have been eating their way through the Nature Center. So we are working on a short-term plan to fix that, as well as a long-term. I'm going to push for something to be done for a renovation or replacement or thing. And some of you will probably see I've done some research, and I have a document outlining the history of that building, which, it was built in like 66 and just plopped there.
it's an ice cream place.
But yeah, it did. It became an ice cream place for a while. But originally, I don't know how many of you know, they were going to make a camp. After the Montreat campground was so successful with Glenn Bannerman, they were going to make another camp up where the horse riding rink is, on where Luca and Oklahoma merge. And those were going to be cabins. They were going to be bunkhouses. That was the prototype bunkhouse for a camp that never emerged. But it's sitting on the ground, has no foundation. And so, finally the bugs have started to get it.
Well, I know that next month, with maybe Josh here, but there is also the wilderness. I would hope that the Montreat Trail Club, I know that you're covering that.
Yeah,
That is just dear to our hearts, and I want to bring in some comment about the trails. that-
sure. Let me, Ayrton looked like you were going to ask something else. I want to make sure we
I'll
answer.
get with you later.
Okay, that's
Thank
fine.
But
Oh.
the trail club.
The trail club, until, quite frankly, I cannot do it.
Yeah. of
Until
course not.
somebody steps forward and said, I want to be in charge of this thing, it's kind of sitting there. We've got membership roles we could dig out if someone was interested. And, quite frankly, they need to be updated. A lot of those people have moved. I don't know. Some of you may know Reed Kirkpatrick.
Yeah.
He had a lot of energy, brought a lot of energy to it, but his love is the sea, and he moved to the coast. And he, when he left, we lost that energy. But yeah, the Wilderness Committee is doing lots of fun
Oh,
things.
it's. good enough.
And as Josh mentioned, we are going back and looking through some of the documents that are kind of in place, as well as some signage, both on the trail. So if you're walking, you come to an intersection, some better labeling there, and some signage down low. So if you come through the gate, some signage to kind of direct you where you actually need to go, instead of just driving around willy and nilly. And
Yeah.
so,
And parking in the wrong place.
and parking is something we're talking about, but that's
Yeah.
also has to come in with the town if nothing else changes.
Yeah.
Because they all, you either, quite frankly, have to have less people or more space, and both of those are unpalatable ideas right now.
Yeah.
So
Well, we're lucky, and the conference center is lucky to have you. Thank you for all you do. And you wear a lot of different hats.
yeah, and I will bring up at the next Wilderness Committee meeting that maybe they appoint somebody other than myself to come and sit in. And so there's
Okay.
more.
Excellent. Good. And I'll be back in touch with Tracy. But Jim had something that he wanted you to be informed in, and what we're. So go ahead, Tom.
Yeah,
Trails.
how many of you have noticed the number of, excuse me, the number of day trippers that are streaming into Montreat to hike on our trails? Anybody else notice that? I think anybody who lives near around Graybeard or up near Lookout has seen that, and the really pretty serious traffic congestion that results from that, as well as congestion of hikers on the trails at certain times. Gracie said a few minutes ago that part of our charge is management of the natural resources here in Montreat. And it seems to me that this problem has gotten to the point that this committee might want to take a position on it. I did just a little bit of research. This is the new Mountain Express best of Western North Carolina poll that's done by their readers, where people vote on all kinds of things. But there's a section here called Local Place to Enjoy the Outdoors. And the readership voted Montreat Trails and Parks to be the #1 resource, followed by Lake Tomahawk and Warren Wilson campus. And it has been voted #1 for the last 4 years in a row, according to this. In addition to that, there are a number of new websites that have popped up, like All Trails, for example, where anybody can look up the Montreat trails and get maps and advice about access and so forth. Also, I called Ridgecrest and said, how do you guys deal with your trails? The answer is that outsiders are prohibited from using the trails at Ridgecrest. You have to be attending a conference. Now, our trails are private property. They are owned by MRA, as I understand it. So we have the right, if we had the desire or the will, to do something to restrict or control access and potential abuse of our trail system. So I would like to suggest that this committee take under advisement, making a recommendation to MRA that some control process be explored.
I think that's great. I will tell you how Ridgecrest manages as well. They have someone at their gate who will not let people in. And that's part of the palatability I talked about earlier. If we put the gate, obviously this is not going to happen, so let's get that straight. But if we put someone at the gate and we had someone letting people in and out, like they do at a national park or like they do there, we could solve that problem very quickly. But the palatability is not there. So, but I do like, speaking as the ranger, I welcome any pressure you want to bring to the office.
When you say the palatability is not there, say more about that.
Well, my understanding is that this gate has to stay open to free flowing traffic because you get state money to maintain the roads and utilities. And so it's no longer feasible. No one is willing to become a private gated community over that.
Jim, somewhere, somehow I heard, and this may or may not be true, that a system of handing out, putting on stickers on residents' cars and charging a fee for people who don't have stickers on their cars.
That's something the Wilderness Committee is talking about, whether that's parking or
Is that where I heard it?
I don't know, but we're talking about a variety of things, including one might be parking stickers, although that could, in fact, cause worse parking because, well, we just won't park at the trailhead. We'll
park
at the
else.
next closest public, road that's we can legally park at. And the other,
Who is talking about it? You said
the Wilderness Committee.
Wilderness.
We're having some discussion over how do you, I mean, this is not a, that's not an unknown problem, I guess is part of
I
it.
think I heard it in town council,
Well, and that's
but I'm
very
not
possible
sure.
too.
But they're aware of it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I think visiting, maybe Jim could visit or
Yeah, that, I
the
think we could,
wilderness as a public citizen.
I think that could certainly be arranged and
Well,
then,
it seems to me that maybe this committee, in some way, some official way, could make a recommendation along with Wilderness, you know, so the two groups come together.
that's great.
Yes, this is now, we're off of our Robert's
Yeah,
rules.
sorry about, I'm Martha Campbell. The town of Montreat is a municipality within the state of North Carolina, and you cannot legally restrict who comes into your town.
Right.
So the gate, which, you know, belongs to the conference center, but no gate can keep people from coming into town. Those are town roads, Lookout and Graybeard and Appalachian and all the ones that we use for trails that other people use and find out about and see the maps and all.
Yeah.
We can't restrict people from our roads. We can't charge a ticket or put you know, we went through having stickers on cars a long time ago when I was a child. You had to pay to come to your own house.
Don't need
But-
to recreate that wheel then.
Yeah, so we can't. Montreat was not a town then. So, I mean, I'm old enough to go back before the town. But anyway, Montreat was not a town and the conference center collected money in order to pay for the roads and stuff, but we don't do that now. So, but as a town, we cannot restrict people from coming in. Now, private property is a different matter and Jason knows that.
Yeah.
But you can't,
Yeah.
he can't stop somebody from parking at a trailhead driving on our roads.
Yeah.
He can make the parking, there's signs that say, the parking is full, park down here. And how many people who are going to hike to the top of Graybeard don't want to hike from the inn, for
Yeah.
example, from the parking
Yeah.
around the inn or the auditorium. They don't want to do it. And I don't actually blame them. That's kind of a long walk extra, but,
So they drive to the nearest open stretch of road. and
Right,
Pull off.
and they pull off.
And that's
But
the
driving
problem.
on our roads cannot be legally prohibited.
Let's suppose that there suppose the word were to be put out to some of these websites that Montreat trails are private. They're not open to the public.
I think Jason's
maybe
tried
there
that.
are-
Have you not?
Tanner has reached out to all trails and said, hey, this is private property. Please remove our trails
And they won't
for,
do it.
from your app. And they said, no. You
Well,
know?
so does it just stop there or do we just?
Well, but basically they then sent us a bunch of stuff that said, as long as you are open and letting people hike on them, we can post it.
Well, perhaps there is some way at the beginning of the trailheads to have at least signage or some sort of an honor system.
Yep.
Whereby you.
We are talking about permits, like a hunting permit or that's not a good example, or fishing or a more like a ski permit. Cause ideally you'd wear it on your backpack or whatever. So you could say, this person has come by and is paid their $1 or whatever, you know. I imagine if that happened, it would be commensurate with kind of the scaling of other Montreat recreations, like paddle boats don't cost you an arm and a leg or, you know, that sort of thing. It would probably not be a whole lot. But yeah, that's part of Wilderness Committee's discussion, that as well as other ways to raise revenue, because that's another issue. Really, quite frankly, what we need are staff to deal with any of that issue. And there's not the revenue for that. The revenue, Wilderness is basically paid for by static funding. And it has been largely unchanged since in the last 15 years. Yeah, and that's we're talking about that. It's a lot of chicken and egg kind of thing. Like, okay, well, you're charging people, but who's enforcing it? Do you hire people to enforce it first and then start charging? Do you start charging knowing people are going to slip through the cracks? But going back to the original, I don't want to take too much time, but please make your concerns known as vocally as you like to the office.
Yes, and, yes, Mary.
Yeah, we've been here long enough, involved in the hiking in the area long enough to see this problem escalate. And it really kind of all started with Lindy Bernstein's book, in which she published on the hiking in Montreat. Montreat had been under the radar. That's probably about 8 years ago now, 6 to 8 in that time frame.
Yeah, I mean, I think Google is the biggest enemy.
Pardon?
Google has been our
Yeah,
biggest
and then
enemy.
social media and COVID.
COVID.
And then the other thing that is, when Joe and I lead hikes, both history hikes and more vigorous hikes, we make it a point to say that you're here by the good grace and courtesy of the MRA, that this is private property. and that this is not public lands. Most people don't distinguish between Pisgah National Forest and the private ownership of both the park
Yeah.
and the trails for that. What is compounds the problem is the fact that when it comes right down to it, there's very little public hiking anywhere in the Swananoa Valley. We think of it's green and being a lot of space, but it's not publicly available. It's on private property. The watershed looks like it'd be great for hiking. It's restricted. Christ Mount is largely restricted, unknown. YMCA has some trails, but it's largely restricted, unknown. And Ridgecrest has completely closed all of its hiking trails to anybody who's not a opinion. That really leaves in the Swananoa Valley, Montreat. So part of it is availability, and the Pisgah National Forest is not used that much. So it's a real conundrum, and it's not going to get any better. And I don't really see it's a problem.
Mary, how did Ridgecrest go about closing those trails?
It's a privately owned company. I mean,
Well,
it actually is no longer associated with the Southern Baptist Church anymore.
Right.
It is owned by private individuals, and people can do with their private land what they want to do with their private land. So, you know, MRA has been very generous, and they have a mission, and we need to sort of respect how they put together their mission and the usage, but it is definitely a huge problem. We've encountered people up at the trailhead for Lookout, and they were from Ohio and had no idea they were walking the wrong way to get to the trailhead. I mean, so it is out there, and it is a mecca, and for good reason.
Yeah.
Yes, I appreciate your comments more than you know, and I do think keeping it in the forefront, perhaps that's an issue that you as a group might, or as individuals might wish to chat with those who are involved in the comprehensive plan, the Wilderness Tomorrow, might include that. As I will leave that to you, perhaps as individuals or committee, whatever you wish to do, but it is something, the protection of our green space, both our unopened right of ways, and the parking, all of these are things that need to be addressed in the new comprehensive plan. Thank you.
And they're not all electric cars driving around up there either.
Yeah.
So
No, other than putting what I call, you know, the little chairs that you just go from one end of Montreat to the other on airline scope. I don't have any answers for you.
hey, I appreciate this discussion. I know we've gone a little over time, but I really feel that this could be the basis of a discussion with maybe some groundwork done, Jim, with the Wilderness Committee and any of those volunteering here on our board. Share a committee?
My problem is that we will be back in Memphis for most of the winter and spring.
Yeah. Well, I think the maybe by February, we can come up with some constructive type of motion or some consensus of feeling to then go and visit, or to say to the Wilderness Committee, this has been something that we've covered and would like to share our concerns.
That would be great. If I can make another suggestion, this is just one of the things I'm doing is I've got a trail camera and I'm trying to get numbers. And if anyone happens to have another trail camera they want to put up on a different trail to get numbers of hikers, so we can have data. So for example, roughly 460 hiked Graybeard, or triggered the camera anyway, over a 1 week period in November. So that's one trail. I would hazard that we get between 1,000 and 2,000 hikers each week on the entire system, but I don't have the data to back that up. And I think right now, all the data and weight that we can put behind, because really what we're talking about is we're talking about shifting a focus.
Yeah.
And bringing this part but closer into focus for what the conference, because the conference center, we do a lot, but the sort of more momentum we can get to shift the sundial a little bit I think that would be helpful. So if anyone wants to and happens to have the means to do that, that I would welcome that and talk to me later.
Yeah, great. So glad you were here. And I'm glad that you brought this up and the best at Western North Carolina. Our friends. So, knowing that I'm going to be, attaching some, material about the Monterey Cottagers Wilderness and Open Space, but I'd like to know if that for next month. And if the Earth Ministry team now, if you have any, money.
Monterey Presbyterian Church takes great pleasure in donating $500 from our environmental ministry to the Landcare Committee, Nancy Holtz Fund
Excellent.
for Flat Creek Crossing.
Yep. And thanking. I think this is 4 years in a row. Is that right, Martha, that we've had this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So, we'll tend to that. I have, maybe we'll get some conversation going with which account this is going in for sure. And you do have a Nancy Hope Fund Flat Creek Crossing. So that's the way it is. Okay. Thank you. And you are now our church is a certified community natural habitat, even though we don't own the land.
Yes.
And welcome back from Florida.
Thank you. But on a personal note, I'll leave Tuesday. It's much too cold here this weekend. And it was before Christmas too.
Well, we're glad you're here and thank you. Now, if there's not any other business, I have something I need to share for everybody. First of all, the little nature speaks to us. Why do bees have sticky hair? Because they use a honeycomb. So in the light of the sweetness that I've enjoyed with this committee, I would like to first share something that I would like to congratulate Arrington of getting herself into the fair business. So if you would just open your gift, you get the larger one because you're the mama bear. Because you are bear wise, and I have one for all of the other. Yeah.
Y'all want to guess what this is?
You. And I will get these to other people, that are in the audience that I have many. Keep going, give one to Jason, give one to Tracy. Okay.
It's a
Yeah,
honey
that-
bear.
Okay. And it's all, and then you have in your smaller pouches some little, oh my goodness. Honey bears. Now this is Carolina. There's some Tennessee out there, but I looked for the Carolina. So this is ending on a sweet note.
Saving that all week.
I have, and there's no other business.
We have one more thing.
Oh, one more.
Just a small token of our appreciation.
Oh, is it some more honey? Oh, how cute. Oh, look at here. Who did this? It's a card. And look at everyone signed it. Oh my gosh, this is the umbrella. This looks like the umbrella with the butter. Oh, there's a monarch on it. Who in the world created all this? Look at this. Oh, to our Monterey Landcare ambassador.
Yeah.
You want me? Grace? I won't read it aloud, but if you, oh my, goodness, who wrote that? Thank you, Grace, for being there for nature and your board. Oh. I have an innate sense of inviting new folks in. Well, welcome all. Native plants. Oh, this is so dear. Who did this? This is adorable. I'm gonna have to frame it. I have to send it to all my. Oh, can you read what you read? Native plants, educational topics, birds, bees, flowers, and trees. Invasive plants are over here with the, and, thank you, George, George, you get some honey too. Anybody here will get some honey. Okay, any other comments?
Yes. Before we adjourn, I would like to thank Grace for her service for these past 2 years and for being such a great leader. So thank you, Grace.
It's been a lot of fun. And I think we need to also thank all the chairs and all the people, and particularly, I think the one that just hung in there till that baby was born is the native plant sale. It took us 3 years to birth it, right? And I look forward to more times with all of you and to be hanging out. Thank you. I'm sorry it's been 20 minutes over, but I'm glad we brought up all the good topics. And again, you wanted to meet me at the car for some sales on some. Get a discount if you meet her at the car. Yeah. Thank you for all. And George, we'll be in touch.